All right. Hi, welcome everybody today to our Diverse Abilities Dialogue panel on guardianship. I'm Jenny Paxson. I am the Reader's Discovery Librarian here at the Webster Public Library. And I am lucky enough to partner with Parents Helping Parents Coalition of Monroe County and Autism Up on these wonderful panels that we do every month. This month's we're going to do as a recording, and then they will be on YouTube to be watched afterwards. And our next month's panel is on, oh goodness, I forgot. Brett, do you remember what next month's panel is?
I know September's is advocacy.
Thank you, Kim. Sorry, boy,
Yeah.
my brain today. September is advocacy. Apologies. So that's something to look forward to next month. And then I'm just going to say a little bit about myself. So I began doing these panels with Parents Helping Parents many, many months ago. And we started doing this. Well, I started in on it because I do our big parent resource parent resource fair in April every year. And we have over 61.
Special needs resource fair.
Yeah, special needs resource fair, special needs. I'm really batting zero here today. Special needs parent resource fair every April. We have over 60 organizations that come. And I started doing that because I wanted to help parents and caregivers get those supports that they need. Just like I have been struggling with myself with my two children who have disabilities. And finding those resources out there is really hard. So I wanted others to get that. And it just seemed like a natural fit with Parents Helping Parents to really get that information out there with these diverse abilities dialogues as well. And as I like to say, our parents are our best resources. They have the most information and they are able to share information because they've lived through it just as we have. So, or I have, and Kim and Britt. And we're very lucky to have this panel and this partnership. So I just want to give Parents Helping Parents a chance to talk about their organization as well.
Sure, I will do that this time. I'm Kim Dewar. I'm the Vice President of Parents Helping Parents. It's basically three moms who started a huge coalition 6 years ago with the goal to help parents and children and families that are in the special education systems. First, it was just early intervention and preschool special ed, and now we just help everybody. We put on purposeful programming every month, either a play date with volunteers from Step by Step and Parenting Village, or a webinar. That our next event is Saturday, August 9th from 10 to 12. It's a play date at Motion Junction in Canandaigua. We also have a sibling support circle the first Tuesday of every month. It is at the library the first Tuesday of August, 5:30 to 7. And then September through the school year, it will be at Webster Rec Center. And we do these wonderful diverse abilities dialogues with Jenny and help support her as best we can for the special resource fair, because she does a lot to put on a beautiful shared resource experience for so many families. So like she said, parents are our best resources, but we know there's so much in our community and we want parents to know about them. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Kim. So, and I apologize, my brain's a little addled today because of some children health issues, which we all have to deal with as parents. So I apologize. But let's get into our questions. My first question will be just a general question, like who you are, what your organization is, and kind of what services that you provide. So if Margaret and Shan would like to start.
Sure. So I'm Margaret Lonan. I am the Guardianship Coordinator with Future Care Planning Services. And our program is a collaboration of the Arc of Monroe, Al Siegel, and Lifespan. Everyone here is employed by Lifespan, and our mission is to support families who are caring for someone with a disability, regardless of the disability, with doing some comprehensive planning. We offer the assistance of 17A guardianship as an option under planning. Shan?
I'm Shan Donahue, guardianship specialist. I, alongside Margaret, just the two of us are the guardianship gurus, if you will, the ones that do the guardianship piece of planning. I would just add that the individuals who we serve are over the age of 18.
And Terry and Dana, would you like to say what you do?
Do you want to start?
Yeah, I'm Terry Lazeski, and I'm a guardianship coordinator here with the ARC of Monroe. Dana will introduce herself shortly, but we both work as guardianship coordinators for our agency. We provide guardianship services for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities who otherwise may, not have someone else who is able to fulfill the role of guardian. We also do provide standby guardianship and also alternate standby guardianship for maybe those families who are looking for a backup guardian to be in place as well. So we do operate under the ARC of New York. We provide 17A guardianships here. We currently have about 34 individuals for whom we are primary legal guardian, and I believe 19 individuals whom we are standby or alternate standby guardianship.
And I'm Dana Marr, guardianship coordinator with ARC of Monroe. NYSARC Inc. is technically the guardian when we get the court paperwork done, and various chapters throughout New York fulfill that role. And so we're the staff within those within ARC of Monroe chapter that does this. We do a lot of collaborative work across the state and particularly our region, with other guardianship coordinators and ARC New York, with the supports we provide. We do a lot in supporting, medical appointments, working with our guardianship committee. It's a very legal process where we have a committee of volunteers with various backgrounds that are actually involved in the piece of voting on decisions. It's similar to how a board would function with how they make those decisions, but we basically bring the information forward to them on what the benefits and risks might be for different procedures or things that might be being considered for somebody medically, and then they ultimately kind of make a voting decision. And then one of the things that can be more challenging as people get older is some of the end of life decision making types of things, and that's even a stricter process where we utilize ARC New York's legal counsel for that process. But there's a wide range of things that we do. We also do day-to-day support. We do visits, we do birthday celebrations, you name it. We're involved in people's lives to support as best we can.
Wow. So you have a room for growth with your division? Like you have 34 of those clients. Do you have other people that work with or is it just the two of you? Just curious.
Primarily just the two of us. We're always looking at the needs of our program in terms of identifying if we're able to consider new applications, for example, for primary guardianship. We're always just trying to balance and look at the needs of our individuals, and within our full-time roles, do we have the ability to take on some new individuals? Currently right now we do have the ability to consider new applications. It is an application process. We are always, looked at as guardian of last resort. So with that being said, it's always good for families to consider a family member if there's a family member that is able and willing to take on the role, or, somebody else important in the person's life. And always looking, to look at alternatives to guardianship, because there are alternatives to guardianship, while there are also great benefits to guardianship as well. So, when you talk about alternatives to guardianship, that might be, maybe the person is deemed to have the ability to appoint a healthcare proxy to help them with healthcare decision making. Maybe they need assistance with financial affairs, which might mean they might need somebody to help support with money management, explore a representative payee to assist them. And there's also something called supportive decision making, which is an alternative that might be appropriate for some individuals who could look at an agreement and having some supports identified in their lives. Individuals that might be able to help with money or help them with health care. So like a circle of supports, and it's an agreement, and there's oversight with a facilitator initially with that kind of process that helps to get things moving forward. So again, with our guardianship program, those are questions that are asked, is guardianship needed? Does the person, do they lack capacity with healthcare decision making? Do they need the full scope of what guardianship can provide? Those natural supports in addition to just the healthcare decision making as well. So it is an application process. It is very lengthy. There's a lot of information gathering. If the person has siblings, the siblings also need to be considered. The waivers need to be sent. And it's the surrogate court requires all of that, and I'm sure Margaret and Shan can touch upon some of that as well in a bit. If mom and dad are deceased and were involved years previous, you have to show proof of death. So the other thing that we want to comment on when looking at ARC of Monroe to explore for guardianship services, the other area that the agency looks for is to see that the person is receiving some sort of service with ARC of Monroe, so that we have some sort of nexus and connection with our agency. Maybe they're in need of residential placement or a day program or, another type of service, ARC Health Services. So that is something else that our board of directors does look at as well, wanting to see that the person is receiving some sort of service under us. And also maybe considering and looking at some kind of financial provision. Is there a supplemental needs trust, pre-need planning, looking at some kind of pre-need planning is also required. It doesn't mean that the family has to have pre-need paid in full, but that we have, plans identified to start with pre-need and how that might be fully paid over time, and wanting to make sure we're supporting the wishes of the family, or the person, I should say. If they don't have any family, we always, we work with a lot with care coordination to help with this process.
So it sounds like you and Harry do a lot of, do you do the paperwork or that kind of thing? Or does that start with Margaret and Shan, like with something
No.
like guardianship?
really
So I don't know.
Go
how
ahead,
that-
Terry. I want to make that clear. I'll let Terry respond.
Yeah.
The Terry and Dana are wonderful to work with. We, when it comes to corporate guardianships, we do support other ARC chapters. But Terry and Dana have really are crucial in helping. We prepare the legal paperwork, but we work together to get everything that is needed. And I really want to stress what Terry just said. There needs to be a connection to the ARC. And am I correct, Terry? Just chime in, Terry. There needs to be a connection to the ARC for the ARC to consider a corporate guardianship.
Yes,
Whether-
that's important. It's not to say that, like, we give priority to people who are receiving a service under ARC of Monroe. Okay. Now we met with a family yesterday who is looking to do a guardianship modification, and the daughter is not receiving a service with ARC of Monroe. Mother came in with a care coordinator. We discussed our guardianship process. We talked about the application. We also emphasized that they really need to be looking hand in hand at trying to get some sort of service established with her daughter. And there were some thoughts and ideas shared and things that the care coordinator is going to explore with her. But they also at the same time likely are probably going to be reaching out to future care planning to maybe begin to talk about, you know, getting on your wait list. I know you have a wait list, right?
Yes.
Mother is elderly. Mother is, you know, wanting to sort of get this modification completed, and I think it'll give her some peace of mind. So yeah.
Okay.
So
For
sometimes
the,
oh, go ahead.
no, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. I was going to say, so there's not always necessarily a service when they're first looking at us.
But I'd rather hear the end of your, I'd rather hear.
Okay. Yeah, so they don't always know the you know, have a connection initially when they're first seeking out guardianship, but many are interested when we kind of share that, and we can often identify something that we can match them with. You know, we obviously don't want to plug them into a service just to plug them into a service if it doesn't fit what their need is. So we want to make sure that's a good fit and match. But we have so many different options, you know, that usually there's something that we can connect the person with. So.
You know, we are a non-funded program, so you know, that is why the agency has kind of looked at, you know, kind of specifying that it certainly is helpful if the person is receiving some sort of service under the ARC. Now we do receive some grant funds. That is a year-to-year kind of thing. We never know for sure. Are we going to get some grants? And so, you know, we're fortunate these last some years we have been receiving some grant funds, but we're not always guaranteed. So yeah.
And it should be noted that the ARC has the most liberal criteria as far as you know, in comparison to other agencies. The ARC will go above and beyond to find a connection. So like you said, you make suggestions to care coordinators as possible ways to connect a person to the ARC, so that if they are interested in our corporate guardianship with the ARC, they might explore those options. Unlike other agencies that the only criteria, and this has to be, is that it's residential. So yeah.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
Can I ask kind of a,
you know,
I mean, go ahead. I'm sorry. I keep interrupting everybody because I'm having difficulty seeing everybody. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. And I think maybe for some of the families that might be some of your viewers, who might be looking to take steps to become legal guardian or explore guardianship for their son or daughter, they may look towards future planning and to have a successor guardian in place, to think down the road, you know, if I'm no longer here or I'm no longer have the ability to fulfill the role. You know, parents that become elderly, it's important to have backup guardianship to be able to step in and be familiar with their family members so that somebody can step in and help provide that support if it's necessary. So, you know, that is where, like our agency, when we talked about standby and alternate standby guardianship, if families are interested and they maybe don't have another family member, another, you know, older son or daughter, whatever, that is interested or willing or wishes to take on the role as standby or alternate, ARC of Monroe can certainly give consideration to, you know, to help a family out in that area as well. But again, the person does need to be connected and receiving a service. So
For an individual that guardianship is presumed to be a you know, an appropriate action to take for the family, for the individual, for the physician, for the team, where guardianship is, a good idea. What can somebody tell me what the advantages are? I guess even backtrack further, for some of our families that are just completely unfamiliar with what guardianship actually is. Can you just kind of give us a quick summary of what it is, and then some of the advantages of having guardianship of an adult individual with disabilities, and then maybe some of the misconceptions that people think that we've certainly heard a few different misconceptions. Could somebody kind of address some of those?
Sure. I think Margaret and Shan can start with that question.
Go ahead.
I'll start. Margaret, I'm sure will chime in. Guardianship is essentially an extension of a parental rights, of parental responsibilities of an individual under the age of 18. When a person turns 18, they then legally become an adult capable of making their own decisions and recognized as doing such. So doctors and within the OPWDD system, all choices and all decisions, primarily medical, would be looked at to the individual to sign off and asked for to make that decision. And when an individual can't, and is deemed, you said it was appropriate, they need support. They need someone to make that decision. In this case, with guardianship, the whoever becomes the guardian is then the person that makes that decision for that individual. So, the disadvantage, if you will, is that the individual now is no longer is the person making that decision for themselves, However, the way, that being said, it's been determined that that person can't make that decision. Therefore, there needs to be someone to do that. Okay. So guardianship is that extension. It becomes the decision maker, the person to make those decisions for that individual.
So Britt mentioned what doesn't guardianship do? So we tell families when they come to us that, yeah, Shan is correct. Guardianship, it is first of all, neither one of us is an attorney. I'll put that out there. We do have a consultant attorney with our program, and she supports families going to Monroe and Ontario County only. Surrounding counties, we still will work with families, but they will file on their own and we will support them through the process. So the thing that Article 17A guardianship doesn't help with is behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to change a behavior. It's very difficult, for a family to advocate if their loved one simply does not want to comply. So you can't force somebody really to do something they don't want to do.
To live where they,
you can't.
Right.
A 17A guardian has decision-making authority on where a person lives, but that person has to be open to the idea of living in a different environment, living in a different place. You just can't decide that they want to place somebody in an environment they don't want to be in. It's difficult for the caregivers then, and it's difficult for the individual. It's not, we tell this to families all the time. It's not, guardianship is not perfect. It gives you medical decision-making authority. It is considered a plenary or all-encompassing kind of guardianship, and that's what has come under scrutiny now with the court, is that it doesn't define the rights of the guardian, what the guardian can do. It just gives really full authority to the guardian. But an individual still has to be open to being compliant with what the guardian decides. It is our hope, we tell this to families all the time, that guardianship, that they would always consider the individual's wishes and desires when they advocate for them, and not just make decisions without consulting them to the extent that they can understand.
And I think
Rick,
that
did I answer?
I'm glad you're commenting on that, Margaret. If you don't mind, I'll comment here. Because when you brought up, like, what are some of the misconceptions, Jenny, about guardianship? within the Arc of Monroe, with our guardianship program, we always really strive to focus on the wishes and the preferences of the people that we support, what is in their best interests, allow for them to be able to participate in their decision making to the best of their abilities and in the safest way possible, because sometimes, even all of us in our day-to-day lives, we may not always make good decisions for ourselves, but we try to help provide guidance and give them the tools and the supports, and maybe they're working with counseling and social work, or whatever supports they might need to help them be able to make good decisions for themselves. But I think, in terms of guardianship, there is that perception, and there are guardians out there that maybe do take away the rights of their family member and are in full control. And yeah, and
it leaves it open to that being
right. And we really strive to make sure that we're allowing the people we support to have their rights too, and to be heard, and to have choices. So just wanted to point that out.
Even if somebody, doesn't communicate verbally, or maybe isn't able to vocalize, when you ask them a question about something they prefer, we really try to take into consideration how they typically, let's say it's a medical treatment, how do they typically respond to, certain treatments? What do we know about their wishes in terms of where they live, and how much burden is too much burden. And so when we're communicating with our committee on, benefits and risks of different procedures, what has this person tolerated well in the past? What might they tolerate? How are they doing tolerating the current treatments that are being given? Things like that. We try to really take into consideration. And when we can, before the person gets, say the person medically declines, where maybe they can communicate earlier in their younger years, we try to get a sense of what that person's preferences are as best we can, so that we can just make sure we're honoring that as they, continue to get older, and continuing to stay up to speed on, and aware as that might change for them if, they share new wishes, or, something changes. So.
Margaret, I know you said that there was a wait list for how long does that wait list look right now, and at this time, and the end of July of 2025?
Well, we are just starting working on 2025 families, I would think, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a pretty months, at least 6,
this is, and we, I can't stress enough that when we give a family an appointment, it's really important that you keep the appointment. I equated to that appointment with your cardiologist. Don't cancel it. Do everything you can. Things come up. We certainly understand if people are not well, we don't want you to keep an appointment. If it's, it's Christmas time and, you want to go shopping instead of keeping an appointment with us, that's and I bring that up because that happened.
People forget their appointments.
Yeah.
They treat it as if it's not significant.
So,
and, we give them appointments they forget.
We really are we don't have, there's 3.5, there's 2 full-time and 1 part-time person right now. We have 1 full-time person who's out on leave, but we're not we're a boutique service. We're not, so we do the best we can to move people through. Shannon and I will pick up modifications, families that have come through the program before and need to modify. Maybe a parent's getting older and want to bring on adult siblings now. We'll pull those in between new families coming onto the program. So that's the thing, is when a referral is made and we finally give you an appointment, it's really important that you keep the appointment.
So what does that process look like, Margaret and Shan, for somebody who is going into a non-corporate, guardianship, like what you guys are usually helping people with?
So we really the mission of Future Care was always to encourage families to do comprehensive planning. That's how we got started. Because there were older caregivers who had no plan in place for their adult child with a disability. So So we want to explore all the planning options and give families a good foundation to get some things in place for their loved one as they get older, as their caregivers get older, so that there's no surprise and there's avoiding a crisis down the road. So the way we work is we follow a 4-step planning process. And since COVID, we've modified that a little bit. But we've been exploring about reverting back to our old 4-step planning process. So the way we work is we would schedule an initial appointment with families, and that initial appointment is prompted by a referral from the care coordinator. We've recently updated our website, and a referral can be submitted right through our website with the supporting documentation that we need. So the referral form is right there. The care coordinator can send a referral to my colleagues, and we'll get you on the wait list, and we'll call you as soon as we can. That starts the process. The initial appointment is free of charge. We go over our 4-step planning process, explain how we work, and not every family that works with us is pursuing guardianship. Some are just strictly looking to do planning. So, and then at the second appointment, once you've had that initial meeting, and there's no charge for the initial meeting, at the second appointment, we would do a letter of intent. And a letter of intent is a legacy document that we hope that as a caregiver, you would share with other future caregivers. I can't tell you how many adult siblings come through the program and have no idea about the OPWDD system, how their sibling is, how their sibling is served, that they have a life plan, so the letter of intent is really something that we want caregivers to share with other family members, so they have some idea, especially if they're going to be an advocate down the road. We even think the letter of intent could be used if an individual is going to the hospital. It gives the staff some information about the individual's likes and dislikes, their abilities, where they need support, their religious preferences, what things make them upset, what things make them happy. So we do write the letter of intent. That is the second meeting with us. We do expect payment at that appointment. At the third appointment, we would do an intake for planning and guardianship. And at that appointment, generally, Shannon and I will meet with the family and gather information needed to prepare paperwork for the guardianship, legal paperwork. And then our planning specialist gathers information about if the family has done any estate planning. Do they understand about ways their loved one can inherit without it impacting their benefits? Supplemental needs trusts, we go over that with them, first, third party, and pooled. We touch on all these areas that would impact their loved one's life if they were no longer here. And we write a written plan and offer suggestions about planning options. We provide them with a list of attorneys that this is their area of expertise. And that all comes in a binder that they have all the information together and can refer to as time goes on. We certainly know that things change. And if the family wants a copy of a digital copy of the letter of intent, we are happy to send that to them so they can update it as things change in their loved one's life. We continue to support the family until guardianship is established. And I'm sorry, the fourth appointment is a presentation of all the information. And we usually Shannon and I are both notaries, and we would witness guardianship paperwork at that fourth appointment as well. We follow families who work with us for 2 years to continue to support them until guardianship is established and to encourage them to complete some of the planning options. And so that's basically how we work. We did modify our process a little bit during COVID to just include the letter of intent and directly going to guardianship. So we have a 2-fee structure right now. For families who are not interested in looking at all comprehensive planning, we would do the letter of intent and go directly to guardianship, and that's $450. If the family is doing full planning with us, it is $600. And depending on if the individual resides at home or not, there is the option of family support services for family cash reimbursement.
So it sounds like the family is heavily involved with that. Terry and Dana, with corporate guardianship, do the families still participate a lot in that? It sounded like they did. Well, or do you?
Yes, they
Okay.
do. I'll let them answer, but it's not, the family needs to be involved in the corporate. If there's no family, Dana and Terry work with us.
Oh,
If there is family, Dana and Terry work with the family,
Yeah.
right? Is that
Yeah.
correct, ladies?
Yeah. It varies situation to situation. For example, I had one guardianship that we got established a couple years back, and the mother is actually very, very involved. She's just getting older. She lives out of state and had never really established guardianship because the person we support had always been kind of able to make their decisions, with a little bit of support with mom. But as the person is getting older, as mom is getting older, she really just wanted to make sure that there was something in place for the person to be able to make sure that they had everything they needed when medical needs get more complicated, as they were getting, that those things could be supported. And so in that case, mom was very involved. Mom continues to stay very involved, helped us right through the process. We've had a few standby applications where some of these parents are very equipped and would do a great job as care coordinators in providing all the paperwork and have been fabulous. And then there's other times where sometimes, we're doing our best to try to gather the information. And, that's where we work with future care planning to, try to see what we need and how we can get the information that's needed to support kind of moving the guardianship forward. So, yeah, so it just depends situation to situation. We use the care coordinators as best we can to support the process. Also, they'll help us in gathering the information.
So it sounds like there's a lengthy process with a future care. Does that start out with them and then go to you? Or how is your process, Terry and Dana, like with the paperwork and application? You were saying earlier that it's lengthy. So do you have to do both processes, or does
Well,
it just start with you?
I think so if it's a application for primary guardianship, and so it's, to look for the ARC to become the primary guardian, we start with the application and we work with the care coordinator and the person's team. So maybe they have no family that can take on the role or no family involvement, period. Maybe they live in an ARC Monroe home, which oftentimes that's usually the team, like the nurse, the manager, feels that this person would benefit from having legal guardianship and those supports in place. So we always start with the application process first, because with ARC New York and NYSARC, or Dana's referred to as NYSARC Inc. as well, our process, excuse me, is such that we have to have the application completed. We have to have all the information gathered, the birth certificate, everything required. We bring that application to our guardianship committee. And so we review the application with our committee, and they approve or don't approve. They want to make sure that we're able to fulfill the need, take on the role. And excuse me, from there, it goes to the ARC Board of Directors. So then the ARC Board of Directors reviews the application. Once it's approved there, it goes to the ARC New York State Guardianship Program. So we have these levels of approval first to complete with the application. Once we know that we have received approval from ARC of New York State Guardianship, we can then move forward, and it's usually maybe right prior to, or we have a good sense that we think it's going to get approved. We'll reach out to future care planning and connect with them and, explore utilizing their services to help us move forward with the legal process. Dana and I usually try to help to assure that we can get the medical affidavits completed during this time. So that, you know, we've identified ahead, does the person need a guardian or do they not need a guardian? And the affidavits obviously help to determine that if they have healthcare decision-making ability or not, or is there an alternative that might be recommended. So it can take up to a year, you know, sometimes a little bit less, maybe a little bit longer, depending on the situation. It's very helpful to have a care coordinator that, you know, is involved and helps with the process. We are more than happy to help with the application, but you know, we need the information. We don't have all the information, so we need that background information. We need a current psych or social eval within 3 years. So we really need the care coordinator to assist with the team members, and we can help with some of the language that might be, you know, the wording of how things should be specified on some of the questions with the application. We're happy to help in those areas.
Getting the capacity assessments, you know, and the affidavits completed can be challenging as well. One of the things we've run into is that there's not as much in resource in our local community to do the capacity assessments. So it's getting a little bit creative to find somebody who can do those. We found a few, but that's definitely a barrier. And those capacity assessments and the affidavits ultimately, you know, need the court process needs to basically kind of be in place by about a year from when that was completed. So if that assessment expires or affidavit expires, we then have to get another affidavit signed again. So the hope is that you can have that done, but we kind of watch that on the timetable to see where we're at, and try to make sure that that's done close enough to when we might be anticipating getting the process completed.
How long does that process take, from the start to end?
For the application and
thing. Yeah. Like with the approval and then going on to the rest of your process.
Yeah, it depends situation to situation. Our committee meets once a month, minus a couple of the summer months. The board of directors, same. So, you know, it usually goes through ours, and then the next month it would usually go through board of directors. And then after that, we'd get it to ARC New York. So that process alone could take 3 months if you think about it, with it getting to each committee. And then from there, it's you know, are there any documents in limbo that we're awaiting, that we're trying to get? I had one application where we were struggling to get the original affidavit from the doctor. You know, sometimes you've got to go to the doctor's office and just say, you know, hey, this is what I need, because it's so hard to get a hold of, you know, some of the offices and things these days with how busy everybody is. So it just depends on what's needed. If you have everything at your fingertips, it can move pretty quickly, probably within, I mean, you theoretically could have one maybe get through in 5-6 months if everything is just right. But typically it takes longer. I'd say our average is probably 7-8 months, maybe.
Yeah. You know, we can
You
try
know-
to work. We can try to work with ARC New York to try to help expedite things if it's, you know, something of an urgent situation with the person. You know, we can try.
You know, Terry and Dana bring up really good points. You know, everything that they're saying, the barriers that they're talking about, the difficulties with the doctor's affirmations and needing the families, you know, to supply a lot of the information needed for guardianship are things that we run into as well. Terry and Dana are talking about getting the approval from ARC, and then all of the things after that point are the same things that we have going on here at Future Care and that we need of the families as well. It's real important that families know that for the guardianship piece, the planning as well, but particularly for guardianship, which seems to be their focus, you know, often, it's not a process that we can complete solely here. It's not a service that we can just provide a family and do it. They come to us, we do everything and give it the, you know, the completed product back. This guardianship is a joint effort with families. There is information that only a family can provide. There's documents that need to be signed by family members that unless that primary guardian prompts their family members to sign and get information back, it stays in limbo. Like Terry and Dana said, doctor's affirmations, families it's helpful when they help us. We follow up with doctor's offices and we run into barriers, but it goes faster for families who assist us, you know, in hounding, if you will, I mean, I'll be frank with people, you know, those doctor's offices. We've had doctor's offices take 6 months. I mean,
The doctor pool has definitely gotten smaller.
it requires
Like
an
Terry and
MD.
Dana, yeah.
It cannot be
yeah.
a nurse practitioner PA, you know, we run into
Yeah.
that problem. So, you know, families really need to stick close with us and not miss appointments. You know, when they're missing appointments in between there, it stalls. Everything really slows down. So I can't stress that enough. It is a joint effort with families for sure.
Especially now, I'm sure everybody knows that finding a new primary care physician is challenging, and we've seen nurse practitioners now taking on patients, seeing patients as they're, you know, taking the role of a physician and seeing, you know, actually having patients that are on their roster, like, and so it's really important. I tell families, if you have a pediatrician, try to stay with that pediatrician until, and if you're interested in pursuing guardianship, try to stick with that pediatrician until this is established, because it's so much harder when they transition to an adult doctor to get the paperwork that we need. We've lost a lot, you know, there were doctors with the ARC who would without any problem would complete the paperwork that we needed, and they have since retired. They're no longer there. So we've actually had to resort to families privately paying psychologists if they have for the second one, for what we, you know, to get guardianship done.
Or traveling an hour away.
Yeah.
We've recently run into an
Yes,
option
there
there.
is a clinic in Buffalo called Sassy that will do affirmations for guardianship, but it requires a referral from the care coordinator. It is a process, but there are doctors there who will do them for us, and at no cost to the family. They take Medicaid. I am seeing more that the complex care center, the physicians there, while it takes a while to get paperwork from them, the 3 physicians there will work together to, if we need to, and there's a primary there, the other physician will also do the second affirmation if we need it. So that seems to be working for some of our families. To go back to the corporate guardianship process that Terry and Dana are talking about. So once they get approval, and Terry and Dana are great because they work so hard to get us as much as they can before we sit down with them for an individual. And then we meet with them. And then, you know, if there are extenuating circumstances, well, reports indicate that there was a sibling, but nobody knows where the sibling is. So we kind of flesh out these things that are, might pose a barrier to getting guardianship established with the court. But ultimately, once we put the packet together, that packet has to get sent to ARC New York for them to release a consent, oath, and designation to us before we can ever file the guardianship with Monroe County. So it does take, like, as they're saying, it could take 7 to 8 months. It could take a while. We try not to let medicals expire or any paperwork expire, but once they're signed, they're only good for a year. So it is a process.
Britt, you had a question?
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about the letter of intent? In the interest of full disclosure, we've gone through the guardianship process. My original kind of thoughts on the letter of intent was, okay, yeah, I'm signing something saying that I intend to pursue guardianship of my child. Not really realizing completely until we, talked thoroughly with the organization what that letter of intent was. But it's a really, really neat document that can be consistently updated that, I think you said earlier, Margaret, we use it all the time when my child changed school programs and in any hospital situations. We've used it for job she does internships. We've used it for internships. And it's interesting. I didn't even know you had an electronic copy. I usually just print the one off and then literally highlight parts that would be pertinent for the situation that I'm using it for. And all of my children, all of the people involved in my daughter's kind of bigger team, all of those supports that she has in place have copies of it too. But if you could just talk a little bit about that, I think it's a really
So I
neat
can
document.
understand why, I can understand why you think it's that the letter of intent is like a signing on to do something. Yeah, no. It really is a document that we hope will support your child throughout their life. And as you update it, I understand that there is a life plan, a care coordinator writes a life plan, but this is a little bit more personal to the, I mean, I suppose that a care coordinator could incorporate some of that information, but you know, uh, I remember years ago, we had a mom talk about this night she would put lavender on their pillow so it was soothing to them to go to, and we will attach anything to it. If a parent wants to put as much into it, we would incorporate it into the letter of intent. I never even thought about jobs. That's a good that thank you for sharing that. But possible job opportunities and sharing a little bit about them. It's done in a way that's it's not like the life plan. The life plan is so like business. This is more a narrative and about your child and their preferences and what you hope for them and I think that and if they do have a trust, how do you want that trust used? I mean, I had a mom say she wants them to buy a new candle every month because he loves the smell of scented candles. Nobody's going to know that unless it's and it's documented somewhere. And when you do full planning with us, we do give you it's called a letter of instruction, and it's pretty lengthy, but it captures everything that a loved one, a future caregiver would need to know about the family and about caring what they want for either their loved one down the road. Wishes, digital information, where it's stored. This is the attorney we worked with. They have a copy of the original will. That's who you should call if something happens to me. So all of this comes with the full planning process. And we really, I mean, before I came here, I didn't have anything in place. But now, it's really important. I see that it's really important. And I did all those kinds of things. I did all that planning and I've written down and I put it in a fire safe box. This is what I want if something happens to me. My children know. I can't tell you the families that call here and don't have any idea of, especially siblings if after a parent's passed away.
I mean, the letter of intent goes so much to talk about a day in the life of the individual. So it details out what time they get up,
Right.
What their day looks like, right down to that, food preferences, favorite foods. These are things that sure the parents know, but like Margaret said, does everyone else in the individual's life know? And it reverts back to guardianship. When guardians are making decisions based on the individual's preferences, there's where you're going to get a lot of that information too. So it goes right back, ties in with guardianship, for those future caregivers, for self-direction too, for those staff. I've suggested to families they might be using it to either train parts of it to train self-directed staff for your individual or having it handy as a resource. It has doctors in there listed, places that they go and frequent, what they do, you know, memberships, things like that, so that, you know.
And like Dana was saying, there are, you know, if there are individuals who, as they get older, their ability maybe to communicate isn't what it used to be, or and if you're making an end of life decision, you want to be able to look back and say,
Mhm.
and Terry will recall this, you know, how important was eating to someone,
Mhm.
and now we're going to place a feeding tube. You know, I mean, those things, all those things in the past can give insight to a decision, if especially if it's a corporate guardianship, or even if it's a family member. With end of life decision making, the state gets involved on all end of life decision making, whether that be mental hygiene, legal services, or OPWDD. But there are criteria that need to be met. But it's so helpful to have some insight into what was so important in this person's life
Mhm.
that we're going to take away from them now in order, you know, to keep them going. Does it become overly burdensome?
Mhm.
It helps with making those decisions.
At what age, I know you don't service individuals under the age of 18, but given it's a timely process, when would you suggest a family call you if they're interested in pursuing guardianship, or have the care coordinator submit that referral? And are there any things that families can do in the interim if they're concerned, if they have a medically complex child and they're concerned about what to do between 18 and when guardianship might be approved?
Sure, yeah.
So I would say, because we have the wait list, 16 and a half is a good time to make a referral.
I think Liz is saying 17, but around there.
Yeah.
You know, talk to us 16 and a half, 17, and that.
Yeah. But I mean, I had somebody call for a 12-year-old. That's a little too young.
Mhm.
So 16 and a half, 17, anywhere in there would be a good time to make a referral. If someone is medically fragile, medically compromised, absent under the Healthcare Decisions Act, there is a list of who can advocate, who can make decisions. Absent a legal guardian, it goes to a closest involved family member, and it lists all these individuals who can make a decision all the way up to the surrogate court. If it got to that point to make a medical decision. But absent a legal guardian, if someone can't make a decision, it would go to the closest involved family member.
Carrie, Dana, do you have an age like that usually people start at? I know usually somebody who goes into housing is probably older, but
Yeah, we generally, you know, have not experienced a lot of younger applications. However, we did not too long ago have an application for someone who was still in school, and the family was looking for a standby guardian because they really didn't have any other family. And, you know, just with needs and things of that nature within their family, they wanted to make sure that they had some planning ahead. So if something ever happened, you know, the freak accident, whatever, that they had somebody else who could step in into that role and help support their loved ones. So, you know, I think that's the youngest we've seen, and I think she was what, 20, maybe 19, 20. So that's the youngest we've seen. It doesn't mean that we can't have somebody come who's a little younger, who's, you know, trying to get established. But that's the youngest that we've actually had come approach us seeking out services. Yeah. Who's fit and made sense, you know, where it's made sense. Sometimes we'll get calls randomly from people in the community, and I think sometimes they get, you know, custody versus guardianship confused, and you know, so we'll clarify what we do and what our role is, and you know, that sort of thing. But yeah, but other than that, we typically, it's like 18, 19 is the youngest we've really seen. Yeah.
Britt, do you have any closing questions that you have?
No, I guess you know, We've only had a positive experience with guardianship. We have one currently going through it, one about ready to go through it, and one that we already have guardianship of, and several younger children. And it's interesting because I know there's a lot of controversy in the community from a really personal perspective, and I'm not speaking for anybody else, but from a really personal perspective, all of the other options that are out there involve, as far as I understand, really identifying the people in the individual's life that are supportive of them, the people that will help them with finances, help them with healthcare decisions, help them with day-to-day tasks. It's kind of identifying all of those support people, which I think is awesome. And then the individual can go to those support people. What I have felt most positively about in terms of guardianship is that we have done all of that and we have guardianship. All of my children know who their support people are. They know who the people to go to are for particular questions, for very specific help. In general, a broad sense, we create that document with them. A lot of that is discussed in the guardianship process. And then, I think it's the responsibility of the guardians or of, the support team to be consistently having those discussions so that as the individuals do grow older, they're continue to be, they're still aware of who those support people are in their life and that they are seeking out these people when they would like information. I've never, again, we only have one child that we have guardianship of, but I have never felt a need to trump my daughter's decisions. And I guess that's not to say it'll never happen. But I do feel from a very personal perspective, I feel a sense of being able to put her interests first and protect her at the same time. So I know it's a very personal decision and I know there's, some kind of controversy out there, but I really think, everybody is entitled to all of the information out there. And I appreciate you guys giving that to us today. I really think you gave us a very broad perspective on different services that are available in the community and ways in which we can support older, adult individuals with disabilities. So I guess thank you is my only closing comment. Thank you for sharing all
Thank
that
you.
information with us.
You,
I do want to say, we do, when we'd like to meet all the individuals that we work with. And we do sometimes turn families away, especially when an individual indicates to us that they don't want a guardian, and especially when they're still, that 17, just turning 18, they're still so very young, and maybe giving time to mature. Maybe there are the other options out there would work just fine for them, a healthcare proxy, or maybe exploring supported decision making. So when we meet with families, we do present all the options, even the alternatives to guardianship, because guardianship is serious. It does take away a person's decision making ability, takes away their rights. So we do explain all those different options, and it's not for everybody. And that being said, there are some individual families that unfortunately we will not work with, because if a doctor can't provide a really strong comprehensive reason for the need for a guardianship, we won't bring it to court. We have recently seen in court settings where the court will ask for more than, so as Britt was saying, guardianship is under scrutiny. And the one way the court is looking at this now is these doctors' affirmations need to be, don't just check a box and write nonverbal. There needs to be more written there as to the need for the guardianship. And one example might be an individual struggles with complex decision making. So there needs to be comprehensive medical affirmations. They cannot just be,
Diagnosis.
it can't be just diagnosis driven. It has to be comprehensive. And there are courts out there now that are asking us to submit psych evals in addition to the doctor's affirmations, because they want to take a look at everything that is in the filing and the need for guardianship, to support the need for guardianship. So yeah, it's we want to make sure that we're doing the right thing, and I think it's good. You know, I would say
I think
most-
families explore options,
Yeah.
and some come to that decision themselves,
Yeah,
alongside us,
and once they've talked with
are
us,
pleased with,
yeah,
thankful that they've
are
looked at other
yeah,
options.
are willing to wait, even wait a little bit after the age of 18, to see how their child matures, and if they still decide, want to pursue guardianship. But sometimes once they've talked to us, they give it a second thought.
Any final thoughts, Terry and Dana? Or anything you'd like to share?
Can't think of anything. We just thank you for the opportunity to share about our program and, help us provide you with, and your parent groups, just an overview of what Arkham Monroe Guardianship, what our services provide, and an understanding about how our program works and the application process. And, just clarifying as well that we do not provide legal services to help support a family with wanting to complete a petition to become guardian. So we do get a lot of those kind of phone calls. So just to help families, understand that unfortunately we don't have the legal expertise nor the time or resources here within our roles. We really dedicate our time to providing our guardianship support and oversight to the people that we are guardian for, and being that backup as well. We maintain really good contact with families for whom we're standby or alternate standby guardian. We stay in touch. We want to be updated. We want to be that prepared to step in if there's the need. But just wanted to emphasize that as well, because there's a lot of misconception, and it's hard for families because many families maybe don't have the financial resources to try to look at pursuing legal support on their own and whatnot, or they don't have a care coordinator that has the knowledge and the time or the expertise to help with petitions. So it's challenging. Sometimes families don't know where to turn.
And one thing that we've also found too at our roles as guardian, especially with services, out there, we've seen, just staffing is tight everywhere you go. Sometimes, our role as guardian, we're really able to go in as the advocate, and, it might be making sure that nursing is communicating with the physician, or talking, with someone from a residential home if the manager changed, and being able to support making sure they know the history when they might come in and not know, much about somebody's history, or, what's been really important to them the last, 15, 20 years, and really making sure that those needs are supported. So that's something we do a lot, is kind of, pulling in those different, parties, and making sure that what is needed to support that person in the best way possible is communicated across the different providers and the team, kind of like what was being shared earlier. So, yeah.
I will say Terry and Dana do an awesome job in advocating for those that they serve.
Thank you.
They
We
really
try.
care. They do.
And we want to comment back. Margaret and Shan, you guys are always there to really just help to support with our applications and petitions. And, if it's a need that, we need to kind of get moving forward, you're willing to kind of figure out a way to help them not be at the bottom of the waiting list. And so we value the partnership that we have with all of you too.
And I do want to say that, if there is an urgent situation,
Yeah.
we will look at it. We wouldn't put somebody on the waiting list if there
Right.
was, if there was a real urgency to getting guardianship done.
Well, I want to thank you all for coming today and doing this panel. And as a reminder, remember to keep those appointments. Don't miss your
We would,
big things I took from this. Don't miss your appointments. But I really do appreciate everything that you did today. And this is just so much information. As me and Britt say, this is the best panel that we've had so far. It was so much great information. I always feel like I'm totally confused and don't know what's going on. And after these, I'm like, wow, oh, wow, now I know. I feel like I'm in the know now. And earlier, I just wanted to clarify when I say that parents are the best at giving information, it's a great, we come up with these great topics and then we're able to get these great people like the four of you to share this information with the community. And we wouldn't have that if there wasn't wonderful people who knew all this information to be able to share. So we really appreciate you coming on to this.
and any parents can call us anytime if they have questions. Sometimes us explaining it can be confusing, but it's okay to give us a call. We'd be happy to talk with you and answer any questions. And that's fine. They can call us at any time. Britt knows.
I'll put the link to both of your websites on the YouTube, so people will be able to see that information and be able to get in touch with you all. Okay.
Well, thank you again.
Thank you so
everyone.
much. Enjoy
you.
your day.